I'm Bruce Dorner, and with me today is the Bristol Fire Chief, Ben LaRoche. Good morning, Ben.
Hey, Bruce. Nice to see you.
And we're here today to talk about the proposal that's coming up on the town warrant for the annual meeting in the spring of 2022 for a new public safety building to combine both police and fire in one facility. So, Ben, tell us a little bit about how this project came to be.
Well, it started when we began looking at the fire station and knowing that we've outgrown this building. It was built in 1974 to serve as a fire station, and then in 2000, when we brought EMS into the fire department, we quickly split the seams when we started to put ambulances in here. And then over the last 20-odd years, everything's gotten a little bit bigger. The staffing has increased a little bit, and we've just outgrown the building. So we did some study work. We looked at the site, what the potential opportunities are, got some numbers to expand the building, and those numbers just really didn't make sense, and we'd lose a lot more than we'd gain. Maybe we could add an apparatus bay, we'd lose a lot of parking, we'd add an apparatus bay, but really not satisfy, all of the needs of the department. And so Chief McIntyre, started here around the same time, and we really started looking at the public safety building concept, which I think is a good concept a lot of towns have gone to. It's super efficient, right? You've got one building, one operation center. Your operation costs decrease overall within the town. And on top of that, we started to look at other buildings, those towns around here that have built public safety buildings in the last few years. And we talked to their people, their chiefs, their fire chiefs, their police chiefs, their employees. And overall, the operations of public safety in those towns, police, fire, and EMS, just works better when you have that relationship, right? And that you're combining forces in the same building, you interact a lot more, and you train together. So those are all things that came into it, and then ultimately, really, it allows you to produce a building at a fraction of the cost that over time it would cost you to build or renovate two buildings.
So we've got a number of efficiencies to be achieved if this project moves forward. But what do you say we take a tour of your current facility so the town gets to understand what the conditions are and why you and Chief McIntyre and the Select Board believe this would be a good move for the community?
So you'd enter through the lobby, which is just off camera there. You'd have that space to conduct most of your business if we have to have somebody come in, whether again it's for fire prevention, to discuss a call, an incident, whatever the case may be, then they'd enter into this area here. So as you enter into this hallway, it's really the primary access to the apparatus room, where all the gear and all the apparatus is stored. Realistically, when somebody comes in, they're probably meeting with the administrative assistant in this space here. So this serves as her office. It also serves the kind of dual or triple role of really the duty room and the radio room as well. So this office gets pretty packed pretty quick if we're in kind of an emergency type setting where somebody's running a radio to assist on a call outside of the station, obviously, and then the administrative assistant still doing her duties, that she has to do. So currently there's two dorms for our career staff, for our staff that's on duty. What that means is that this space then becomes kind of an extra bunk area. If there's storm coverage, a major event, somebody gets off shift late because of a call, and instead of driving home, it just makes sense for them to sleep here because they're back on duty in the morning, or whatever the case may be. Really, in a new building, the idea is that we would have enough dorm space to house not only what we're staffing currently, which is 2 members, but in the future it would allow us to expand that when the time comes that it's needed, and certainly give us space so that if somebody's in here on storm coverage and trying to get some rest till the next call, they're not getting tripped on by the guys or girls going out on a call in the middle of the night. Really a true sleeping space versus a cot in a corner.
So as I understand the proposal for the new facility, the dorm space would be on the second level, an upper level,
Yep.
and all of the operational areas would be on the ground level.
That's right. All the operations would take place on the ground level, providing great access for not only our personnel, but any customers that we have. Easier access for moving equipment around, no stairs to deal with. All the living quarters, so to speak, would be on the second floor, which would include, like I said, a fair amount of dorm space. But as we move through the building, we'll probably get a chance to talk more about our student intern program and how that affects kind of our need as far as how many dorms are needed. This is our version of a multi-purpose room. It's really, the original design was the training room. Over the years, as emergency management's developed, it's become the town's emergency operations center. And it functions fairly well for that. Maybe the issue is that it also is our primary break area, eating area. It's our fitness area. It's our storage area, right? So it's become a lot of things over the years. It works relatively well on a day-to-day basis. The really big issue is when you have those situations, whether it's a good winter storm or a hurricane coming up the coastline and you have to open the operations center. Now there's emergency operations functions taking place. There's meals taking place. This is one of those places that acts as that overflow, sleeping quarters if you have extra coverage on, and it gets pretty tight pretty quick. And really when you come in here, after dealing with storm issues for the entire day and you want to eat a meal and kind of relax and unwind a little bit, it's hard to do that because you're still right in the thick of everything else that's going on with the emergency operations.
I see that we're at the back of an ambulance, the back of an engine. A little bit of a tight fit here. Somebody really has to know how to drive these.
Yeah.
Seems like you've really come up with a good workaround to make everything fit.
Yeah, we've made it work for now for the apparatus that we have, and that will likely change in the next couple years. This ambulance is a 2012 that'll be up for replacement in about 2 years' time. This type of ambulance with the van chassis, it isn't available anymore, and so it'll be longer. And as you can see, it can't be much longer, and unfortunately it will be. So it puts us into a position where we're now at the point, if we don't move forward with this building project, that we're going to have to start designing apparatus simply based on size and not be able to take as much consideration into the needs of the community and how we deliver the services we deliver.
Ben, I also understand that there's a lot of gear and equipment that the firefighters need to have readily available. Could you show us where that area is?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of it's right over here. Yeah, so this is our gear storage. It's right in the apparatus bay, which is certainly convenient because it's right near the trucks. For the most part, this is the call and part-time personnel keep their gear over here. Obviously there's two big concerns. One of them's pretty obvious right now, that I've got a lot of gear to put on to a relatively decent-sized individual, and I don't have a lot of space to do it. Not only that, there's the issue of now I'm putting my gear on. Maybe this truck is moving because it's headed to the call. I've got the Plymavent system, which is great because it moves all those carcinogens from the exhaust that we were talking about out and out of the building, and we don't have to breathe it in. But if my gear rack's over there, I've got to watch out for this, right? So that's really the big issue right here. The other is that, probably people have seen a lot of the legislation that's gone on recently with presumptive cancer laws, and those carcinogens and those bad materials that we're bringing back on our gear are causing cancer in firefighters, which is a huge deal. So modern fire stations look at this and say, this gear, clean or no, should be in a separate storage environment, because we know we've got one gear extractor. If we have a fire and say 6 individuals respond to that, go in, and now they've got carcinogens on their gear, that's got to be cleaned off. I can only fit about one set of gear in that extractor. Even if we bought a really big one, I might be able to fit 2 or 3 sets of gear in it. So I'd still have some gear. So if this firefighter was waiting for his gear to be cleaned, it's going to be stored right here. Now I'm doing truck checks in my duty uniform, or I'm responding to another call, and I'm constantly exposed to that. So the new building would provide that separate gear storage where, again, kind of as a matter of flow, we would be able to return from a call, enter that space. That's where the gear extractor would be. That's where the decon room would be. And then clean gear can be put on racks. You can have a rack aside for dirty gear, in that enclosed environment. Really providing just a better work area and a better area to have a fair amount of room to be able to put your gear on and not have to fight for somebody that came through that door, but his gear rack's over there. So this is our current gear extractor. We received an AFG grant 2010, 2011. Sorry, 2010, 2011 to buy an extractor. Prior to, we didn't have it. We could only just scrub with hand brushes and let it hang out to dry. So we were able to buy this piece of equipment, which really pulls all the material. It's effectively a commercial washing machine. It spins at a high rate of revolution to get rid of those carcinogens. So this was the only place that it could go, and so this is where it lives. We couldn't turn it a normal way because it would get, we wouldn't be able to open the door. Also, as it opens and as you're putting gear in, and the gear that is dirty that gets stored here until it gets into the extractor is right outside of that office that we were looking at earlier. So this is really the only space that we have for decontamination. So our gear gets decontaminated here. There's a slop sink between mopping and general house chores. If you have some smaller equipment that needs to be rinsed off with water, that's where it occurs. We've recently acquired a separate, more residential washing machine for our duty clothes. We've always had a policy to change out our uniforms, so we're not bringing anything home to our families. But this really, like I said, this was 2010, 2011. It's starting to show its age. So it allows us to kind of use that machine, which was a donation for our general washing that takes place on a day-to-day basis, and allows us to keep this up and running a little bit longer. So in the future, the hope would be, and the plan is, that this would be in that gear storage area in a separate room, along with a utility sink for that gross decon, within a splash-proof type room that you can then go back in, take a quick hose to it, clean the entire room, and none of that's out in this general work area, which right over there is the doorway from the lunch area. Just behind the camera is the doorway from the office area. This is the space everybody's traveling in, and it's probably, at least for its use, the dirtiest area in the building.
We've walked out the back door of the station, and there's this overhang and shed with another piece of equipment. Would you explain how this came to be?
Yeah, so as we were talking about in the apparatus bay, we're pretty tight with the equipment that's in there. And that equipment isn't all of our equipment. We have a trailer that's stored off-site, and then our forestry vehicle, which is this vehicle, this is where it gets stored. And so we built the shed roof to accommodate that. It means that this vehicle has to live outside constantly. The new building would afford that space so that this vehicle could be inside. We're not going to have any issues. It's a diesel in the cold weather. And it also really was a function of more storage. As we filled up the apparatus bay, obviously we ran out of any available space to store, extra shovels, ladders. There's some training equipment and plywood here. And then in the back there is our fuel storage area for the heating system.
You've now seen the second segment of our three-part series regarding the proposal for the public safety building. You've had an opportunity to appreciate the needs of the fire department. Now, let's take a ride over to Farmington, see what their new public safety building looks like, and above all, I look forward to seeing you at town meeting on March 8th.